The trouble with teleporters is that it's really hard to take advantage of how awesome their powers are without leaving your audience a bit spatially embarrassed. I mean, fight scene continuity is difficult enough without having someone who can cross the intervening spaces without actually moving, right? But I promise you, it can be done. The opening scene of X2, X-Men United, or X-Men 2, as well as I call it, shows us
Kurt Wagner, but in the Munich circus I was known as the incredible Nightcrawler.
Sneaking out of a White House tour group to invade the Oval Office and kill the president, with Mozart as a backing track. I like it. I mean, spoilers, he does not succeed, and also he was being mind controlled at the time, but it's still a really great use of your teleporter, and we're going to talk about why. This is one excellent scene. My name is Jill Bearup, and one of the top 5 things I'm looking forward to doing once we're all allowed to be in the same room as each other again is stage combat, which is to say pretending to beat people up for acting purposes. Which is one of the reasons I take a keen interest in dissecting movie fights, not just from a technique perspective, but from a storytelling perspective too. And that's what we do on this channel, so let's get to it. Although, one quick note before we start, I came in with a definite bias that kind of hampered my enjoyment of this scene the first time around. You see, I know who Nightcrawler is, and he's one of my favourites, and making him attack the president made me think that this was going to be character assassination of the highest order. How very dare you! I was much more vehement about this kind of thing in 2003, apparently. I mean, the X-Men movies do tend to go kind of dark and leather, so it makes sense that they would not be emphasising the fuzzy bunny screwball aspects of Kurt's character, but still, a little bit more levity would have been nice? Never mind. Once I knew that this was just an action set piece where Nightcrawler is being controlled and has no free will, it made a lot more sense. And from a choreography and effects perspective, it's just good. Well, okay, not this bit where he teleports in a straight line closer to the gun that is shooting bullets at him, because really? But apart from that, look at this. Look how beautiful and creepy and informative it is. But we'll get there. A brief chronological rundown before we start. X2 opens with Xavier monologuing, there are some vertigo-inducing credits, and we begin properly with the White House tour and a thematically appropriate quote.
"We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies."
Cut to the Oval Office. Our mysterious figure wanders off, the sound design kicks in, and we pause for a moment with JFK. Back to the Oval Office, and then off we go. Nightcrawler disarms some guards, teleports all over the place so nobody is sure where he is or how many of him there are, and gets closer and closer to the Oval Office. Then he's outside the Oval Office. Now he's into the Oval Office. Now I've got you right where I want you. He gets shot and disappears. End scene. I often say on this channel that good fight scenes give you character details as well as doing things like advancing the plot and world building. That's not really relevant in this case because he's being mind controlled. But the other stuff works very well. And it looks so nice. The multiple teleports per shot were so captivating that it took me several goes through to remember that people can't actually teleport, and so this was probably a really big pain in the backside to put together. But so worth it because it looks flawless. And while that's a really great effect and it does make Kurt look really badass, the things I was most impressed by in this scene were how it gives you a sense of geography and how it builds up the tension. Action scenes are obviously supposed to be tense. You're supposed to be on the edge of your seat thinking, what's going to happen next? And that tension should rise and fall while rising overall over the course of the scene. You know, to keep things interesting. But if you can't really tell what's going on, it robs you of that excitement and that tension, and you're just kind of left confused. The White House set is a bunch of fairly neutrally decorated corridors and fairly neutrally decorated rooms. How then can you give the impression that Nightcrawler has to cover distance to get to the Oval Office? With running and jumping and teleporting. And then, how do you give the impression that he is so fast, so all over the building, that they think that he's multiple people? That's more difficult, but they do a pretty good job of it. We'd have a really hard time telegraphing that the many Secret Service people are in fact several sets of distinct Secret Service people. Some confusion is alright because it is meant to be ambiguous, but we do need a little bit of tell as well as show to explain to us that we're in several different locations around the building and not just moving linearly toward the Oval Office. So here's how they do it. 1, we keep cutting back to the Oval Office, which reminds us where Nightcrawler is aiming for and ratchets up the tension as he gets closer. 2, the Secret Service people talk to each other a lot about where Nightcrawler is, concluding, because he's moving so quickly and teleporting all over the place, that he's not one person, he's actually multiple people, and so none of the exits are secure. Which is why they lock down the president in the Oval Office instead of trying to get him out. They seek him here, they seek him there, those agents seek him everywhere. 3, we take the time to swoop out through the peephole of the Oval Office into the office right outside for Nightcrawler's arrival there, which gives us both a little bit of a breather in the action and also a chance to process exactly how close he is before we get into it. And then having given us that breather, in order to ratchet the tension back up again, we don't see most of what he does in the office right outside. We listen to the gunfire, we faintly hear the sound of the teleports, but we, like the Secret Service agents and the President, just have to wait. As in horror, the tensest parts are where you can't see the monster, but you know it's there. And then in we go, and I love this. I love the detail of the outer room being full of smoke from all the teleporting Kurt has been doing. It's supernatural and otherworldly and scary and confusing. And it's such a good use of slow motion, and even though one might have been expecting slow motion, it works really well. In 2003, when X2 came out, everybody and their granny was still big into Matrix-style bullet time action scenes. Or at the very least throwing in some slow-mo so it feels a bit Matrixy. The Matrix does it not just as a stylistic choice, though there is a bit of that, but also to underline Neo's ability to move and react at a pace that can't be read correctly by the human eye. And so we get both the real-time interactions, which are impossibly fast, much too fast for us to process, and the slow motion section so we can actually see what's going on and not just think, oh, he moves very fast. How lovely. Teleporters, like people who can move really fast, have the problem in cinema that if you use them to the fullest extent of their abilities, then you have to be really careful to show exactly what's going on, otherwise the audience are just like, eh? The 2008 movie Jumper has multiple teleporters with effectively unlimited range, and yet is still less impressive than X2 when they come to use it for combat. The cuts are so fast, and so bewilderingly chosen. Why? Why so many cuts? Why in these places? That it's nigh impossible to keep track of what's happening and you're just left feeling like you're missing something. And then even at the end of Jumper, when they actually have a teleporter on teleporter fight which takes place across multiple locations, it's still insanely fast editing and that whole shaky cam thing that just makes it a bit vertigo inducing. Teleporters are cool! We can do better than this. Case in point, to make Nightcrawler look impressive, he needs to move and teleport fast, faster than we can reasonably process over more than, say, 2, maybe 3 opponents. So it makes perfect sense to have the longer shot and some tracking and to slow down, and it looks amazing. I love the multiple teleports per cut. I love that it's slow enough that we can really follow it, and I love the varying heights and positions into which he teleports. Now you're thinking with porters? Teleporters? I'll work on that. Top-notch use of the 3 dimensions in which he can move is what I'm saying. And all of these things combine to give us what I think is the best scene in the entire movie. Which is just as well, because Nightcrawler is somewhat underused in the actually doing things sense for most of the rest of the runtime. But then I would think that. Regardless, thanks for watching one excellent scene with me. If you're interested in movie fights and how they can tell us things about character, story, world, all of that jazz, then you should stick around and subscribe. Though you should also probably ring the bell, or you may never see me again. Thanks, YouTube. Never mind. Hope to see you next time.